The UK's waste issue has in recent years spurred on a new trend within the world of social media influencers and bloggers to lead zero waste and sustainable lifestyles. Having visited a local recycling centre, I was able to see for myself the vast amount of waste that is produced in my town alone. With the rising number of zero waste and eco-aware businesses popping up, I decided to investigate further into how these workplaces run in order to reduce their impact on waste production. In this episode, I explored the expanding industry of eco-eating, meeting with restaurateurs who strive to be zero waste within their workplaces. The journey begins at Terroir Tapas, a local eco-aware tapas bar where I currently work. Working with Mark and his team allowed me to get to know better what it's like to work in a zero waste restaurant.
The way we wanted to design the place was to have as little impact on the environment as possible. So we started deciding, okay, how can we do this? So we started getting our suppliers on board by using crates that we bought. There's no packaging on that, no cardboard, no polyester, no kind of plastic, anything at all. It kind of stops with us. You do notice working in a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, generally the waste aspect as part of it. Changing your bar bins around about 2-3 times a shift, to even like kitchen waste. So when there is kind of like an off-cut of something, how can we utilise that item that would normally be thrown away into something that's perfectly delicious and edible?
Something that truly stood out for me at Terroir was the use of aquaponics to grow ingredients on site for their menus. The aquaponics system is a closed-loop system in which nutrients produced by the fish are then absorbed by the plants, enabling them to grow with the help of an ultraviolet light system. To be able to have a system like this on site allows the chefs to pick what they need and put it straight onto a plate. It was interesting to see firsthand how systems like these are already reducing Terroir's need to import certain ingredients, not only reducing the cost but also their carbon footprint. I met with James Fowler, the owner of Terroir Tapas, and he showed me how aquaponics work on a larger scale at their greenhouse site in Sway.
So we're using this site here as a kind of growing site for Terroir, as a nursery of sorts, because we can't grow enough within the restaurant space. Currently at the other restaurant, we spend about 60 quid a week to get rid of our waste. That's recycling and general waste as it goes. The busier restaurants are and the size of restaurants, there's obviously a lot of waste, be it from napkins to food waste. But yeah, it seems to be working well. So everything's germinating nicely. This is we only put these in at the beginning of the week.
Okay.
So that you can see it all sprouting nicely.
Would you say that it's working better down here than it is at Terroir, the aquaponics system there?
Yeah, I'd say so. Just because it's the greenhouse and it's nice and warm.
Yeah.
It's also getting natural sunlight, whereas Terroir is quite dark, so we have to use ultraviolet there. Will sustainability and zero waste stick around? I hope so. People need to be more aware of it.
After speaking to James and Mark, it made me wonder why more restaurants are not taking their waste impact more seriously. It seems to me that unless the industry starts to take more responsibility, we could be in serious trouble. I felt it was important to find out more about how I could incorporate some changes within my own lifestyle to reduce the amount of waste I produce. So I'm travelling to London to meet with Georgina to find out what it takes to be zero waste. We're in London on Featherstone Street. We're about to go meet Georgina, who's the editor of Pebble magazine, and we're going to go find out more about zero waste lifestyles. Pebble is an online platform which shares and promotes all things ethical and aims to educate us all on how to lead more eco-friendly lifestyles. The website contains short and exciting articles varying from restaurant reviews to tips and tricks. For Georgina, it's about putting the fun back into saving the planet and making it less of a chore and more of a fashionable lifestyle statement.
I used to live out in Dubai, which is probably the most opposite place for zero waste, and I think after living there and seeing the sort of the damage that not really caring about your environment or not really caring about the future sort of so much gives you, that I wanted to kind of do the opposite of that. And partly through getting involved in Pebble and setting that up, I was interested in where sort of green living could take you, and then came across lots of different zero waste initiatives and different bloggers, and I think it's become a sort of tag for anyone interested in sort of reducing their waste. Yes, at essence it is very simple, just use less, but how we incorporate that into our daily lives and keep our social lives going and keep our work lives going and everything else, that's the tricky bit. And like everybody, no one has an endless pot of money to kind of make these changes, so it's trying to make the changes you can afford to make, and it is a journey. No one wakes up every day and is suddenly like zero waste queen or king. We're definitely seeing a lot more sort of individual restaurants and sort of looking at their supply chain, not just from a packaging and plastic point of view, but from creating a sort of local supply chain, because obviously the closer their ingredients are to them, the less packaging they need, the less wasteful it is. So I think that's the other angle as well, looking for restaurants where their food's coming from within 10 miles or 20 miles, they're going to have a lighter impact on the planet than someone who's sort of getting international food flown in. There are amazing restaurants that are really trying to change this and looking at their entire supply chains, because often the problems aren't actually between the restaurant and the consumer, it's the restaurant and their suppliers and their supply chains. So I think a lot of the work has to be done in the back of house that you might not even realise.
It's magazines like this which I hope will not only educate my generation on how to be better within their own waste, but also expose venues just like Terroir to encourage businesses to take on a more ethical ethos. When Georgina spoke about the restaurants Pebble has worked with, there was one venue that stuck with me in particular. Silo in Brighton, the UK's first zero waste restaurant, which is owned by Douglas McMaster. I was lucky enough to be invited by Douglas to go to Brighton and see the venue for myself.
I met an artist in Australia who made buildings and installations and loads of wonderful art pieces out of waste materials, and it just sort of planted a seed in my head. And it was at a time when I was working for one of the world's best restaurants in Sydney, and then couldn't not see the waste. It was everywhere I looked I saw waste. The big moment for me was a kind of consideration of nature and how nature is relative to waste. And quite simply put, in nature there is no waste. And I thought, well, how do we integrate nature into a restaurant? And that's how Silo was born. We have a very clever compost machine that is an aerobic digester, and that turns all of our organic food waste into compost in just one day. And so that sort of, I guess, mops up anything that we don't kind of put on a plate. So basically all the food waste goes in the top and then comes out here a day later. At Silo we champion upcycling over recycling. So upcycling is where you turn something with little or no value into something with ideally great value, something beautiful. So we turn waste plastic into plates, waste plastic into cocktail tabletops, table legs that would go into landfill, are our table legs. Looking at something which is waste and kind of not giving up, having perseverance and imagination and applying that and creating something really beautiful and really functional. I think the future of restaurants is more natural. Down to the preparation, to the trading, there's just going to be so much more transparency with the food system, simpler, and again with more natural flavours leading the way.
Foraging is slowly becoming a huge craze within the UK restaurant scene. This field-to-table ethos is something Silo champions within its menu. Taking weekly foraging trips with his chefs, Doug and his team are able to find edible and delicious ingredients from the surrounding land around Brighton. I was taken on a foraging adventure with the team, and I learned firsthand what ingredients could be sourced right on Brighton's doorstep.
So it's Alexander's. It's similar to celery, and it's amazing. Now we've got the flowers are really sweet and wonderful, and the leaf is herby, and the buds are really good for roasting or frying. Yeah.
What is it?
Sea beets. It's like spinach, but a sea spinach.
You can see that there's a tiny bit of leaf starting to come out,
Oh, okay, that's cool.
and then just here as well. But
I was just saying we make a Gibson at work with Roxanne Fart that they
Oh,
forage,
cool.
yeah. Something that I have learnt from my journey to explore these venues is that the waste issue within hospitality lies majorly within the supply chain. One simple change that I think most restaurants need to start thinking about is sourcing their ingredients more locally. This can be done by growing their own produce, foraging from the land, and looking into more closed-loop composting systems to install within their venues. It's not to say that the journey to zero waste for restaurants will be easy, but just taking more responsibility and incorporating some simple changes could really create a positive impact for the world we are living in. I've met some incredible people on my journey to investigate the world of eco-eating, and it's only my hope that more and more restaurants like Silo and Tawar begin to pop up in the future.